What's up, everybody? Welcome into Hockey Sense. Great to have you along with us. As always, it's our Friday tradition here from Half Coast Studios. We've got the USA and the Canada jerseys hanging. The weather is nice. It's getting warm outside. You can almost feel the playoffs starting to, you get that inspiration taking place in the air here, knowing that the Stanley Cup playoffs are around the corner. Although we're getting some crazy storms. Cam may have been right. He's sending me weather forecasts all the time, telling me about the storms that we're getting here in St. Louis tonight. So be careful if you're here locally. You want to make sure you're in a good spot. And if your roof gets damaged, call Blue Note Roofing. Call them 314-920-5713. Call David Novak. Tell him you heard about him on Hockey Sense. Brought to you by First Community. Blues lose last night 5-3. I want to give a shout out to STL Sports Hub. Or Sports Hub STL, if I'm butchering that name, I apologize. Dave Green, everybody who put that event on last night. We did it from the Minner Cave, Minner Arena, I should say, out in St. Peter's. There's a Blues fan. A number of commercials and videos and whatnot have been shot from this individual's house, and he opened the doors for us and allowed us to come in and watch the Blues game. Cam and I were there. Jamal Mayers, who will be here in a couple of minutes here on this show. He was also there. We just watched the game and we talked while the game was going on about a number of different things. I hope people enjoyed it. I know we had a number of people tune in and watch, and so that's what we were doing last night. So we too saw the Blues lose 5-3. The game was on FanDuel Sports Network, and it's a tough loss for St. Louis because they did dominate the play. They're playing against a team that is arguably, statistically, record-wise, one of the worst teams in the league. And I know they've got Crosby on the team and Malkin's still there and Letang and all these guys that you've grown up with who are first ballot Hall of Famers, who are generational talents, but they are an absolute terrible, god-awful hockey team. I mean, they are not good. And for the Blues to lose that game with everything that's going on in terms of where you are in the standings and how much pressure there is to get back into the playoffs and the fact that you're so close and the Doug Armstrong pretty much left the team intact. That is a disappointing loss, man. I mean, there's some losses you can look at. The one last weekend against LA where the Blues lose in overtime, right? When Quentin Byfield put one right under the bar. Joel Hofer was in net for St. Louis, but the Blues got a point out of that game. They were coming off of a back-to-back. It was a long road trip. And just how they won or how they got that point, sacrificing the body, a lot of block shots, physical game, all that type of stuff. No Cam Fowler in that game, no Colton Parayko. Fowler was back here in St. Louis for the birth of his child. So big shout out to Jasmine and Cam Fowler on the birth of their baby boy, Bo. They now have 2 kids, so the Fowlers are a family of 4. The Blues still don't have Parayko. They got Fowler back last night. They had a couple of power play goals. They had a ton of chances. I mean, the puck was in Pittsburgh's end. It felt like the entire night. The ice was tilted, and they just couldn't finish. And that's really what it comes down to. Sometimes that sounds cliche, that they just couldn't finish. But if you watch the game last night, I mean, they were just off. Just the playmaking ability, connecting on passes, executing the next play, catching passes, deflecting pucks, getting in front of the net. I think Jim Montgomery talked about that a little bit in his postgame too. That just wasn't good enough. So I don't know where we go from there, I do know they go to Minnesota. They've got Anaheim here on Sunday, so that's another back-to-back situation. So do the Blues now do kind of what they've done in the past? They lose the game where you expect them to win, and then now when you think it's all doom and gloom, and you don't give them much of a chance in Minnesota on a Saturday night, and then they end up winning that game and then coming home and winning both of the back-to-back games with Anaheim being here on Sunday. I mean, hey, maybe that's the case. So as down as you're feeling this morning in terms of their playoff chances, because now, based on the standings, Utah has jumped ahead of St. Louis. I think St. Louis and Utah have the same number of points, but Utah is ahead of St. Louis in terms of the standings, and you still have Vancouver and Calgary to tend with. Calgary's got a couple of games in hand. So, I mean, this is just the reality of the situation. You can't lose those games. When you're in a dogfight to get into the playoffs and it's down the stretch down the stretch in the regular season, you cannot lose games against teams that are below you in the standings. You just can't. It's that simple. It's hard to make the playoffs when you lose to the Pittsburgh Penguins in mid-March. It just is. There's no other way to sugarcoat it. And Jordan Binnington gets pulled in the game, and they're going to respect Binnington as they should. He's been one of their best players, obviously, here this season. He's been their best player in this recent stretch that they had leading into last night's game. He was incredible since the Four Nations. We all know what he did in the Four Nations. And, he didn't play his best hockey of the season leading up to the Four Nations, but he has played some great hockey throughout the course of the year, and last night was maybe his worst game of the season. I mean, look at all these guys who are scoring for Pittsburgh. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, Graves scores his first goal of the season. Connor Timmins gets traded from Toronto, gets his first goal as a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Connor Dewar gets his first goal of the season. Like, what is going on here last night? It just cannot happen. So that's who did the damage last night. I know Raquel scored a goal to give them the 4-2 lead. He got the empty netter on the assist from Crosby. Crosby picks up 2 more points. This guy's going to end up with more than a point per game for like the 20th time. It's just ridiculous. He's up to 72 points now in 66 games. He's unreal. Although he wasn't unreal last night. Did he even have a shot on goal last night? I don't know if he did. No shots on goal for Crosby. He was pretty much irrelevant, like, in the game. I know he got the assist in the game, the empty net goal, and had another assist prior to that. But not much from Crosby. He didn't beat you. And in those type of games, if you're going to lose to Pittsburgh, you can almost live with it if Crosby's the one doing the damage. He had the assist on the Brian Rust goal. It's just a bad game, man. I mean, I know they dominated the game. Everyone's talking about how they dominated the game, but what does it really mean when you dominate the game against a terrible team, but you lose? Jim Montgomery made some changes. He moved Zachary Bolduc up to the Thomas line. I thought Thomas's line was pretty good. I thought Thomas was good. Buchnevich didn't have it going for me. Just my opinion. You could disagree with me all you want. I mean, I want to hear from people. But the comments in the comments section, a guy like Kyrou, who I think is playing hard, but he's just not looking dangerous right now at all. Just doesn't look dangerous. Doesn't seem to have the puck. Isn't overly dynamic with the puck. Had a couple of chances in tight with the goaltender, but he's just not getting those chances off the rush. You're not seeing him sneak behind the defense right now and get those one-on-one situations with the goalie, breakaways or whatever. It's not seeing it. Toropchenko looked dynamic last night. Alexei Toropchenko, what a goal, man. I mean, he goes end-to-end, coast-to-coast. If you go watch this guy's highlight reel from when he was playing junior in the OHL, he scored goals like that all the time. And I know it's not the NHL, but I've always said to him, I'm always like, Alexei, I see your highlight reel in junior, man. I see you score some sick-ass goals. Like, when are we going to see these in the NHL? And he's like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. He always tells me it's coming. Sometimes it's your role that you have on the team, like he's a fourth-line guy. But you see the type of potential that he has. He should have more than 3 goals on the season. Listing at 14 last year. He's been in double digits a couple of times. So he's playing certainly his best hockey of the season right now, Alexei Toropchenko. But just not good enough, and not good enough from Jordan Binnington when you need him the most. They had the break. I think sometimes when you're playing every other night, you just get yourself into such a rhythm and you're so locked in that when you have 3 or 4 days off, it's just it's tough to flip that switch again and find it. And it's easy to lose it, I think, when you have a little bit of a break. When that first game is on the road too, and you don't have the crowd behind you, there's nothing really energizing you. So I know the Blues looked good last night, but to me, it's like Pittsburgh's terrible. I know, no offense to the Penguin fans that are watching, but they're just not very good. I thought about a rule change, by the way, during the game, and maybe this has been brought up. I apologize if it's been brought up for years and years and years. I'm not trying to steal it from somebody else, but the Blues had a power play that carried over into the third period. They ended up scoring on the power play there. I think that was Dylan Holloway's goal, who's got 21 goals on the season. And by the way, I was talking about Bolduc. He's up to 12 goals. He could end up with 15 goals this year. Like, is he a guy that you can pencil in 2, 3, 4 years from now? Is he a guy that you say, hey, can be a 25 to 30 guy? Like, could you see Zachary Bolduc getting to that level? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he scored a lot in junior, and he's got a great shot. So you just got to watch how the evolution takes place and how he progresses as an NHL player. But, I mean, he can shoot the puck. He gets himself open. He knows what to do in the offensive end. He works hard in the defensive end. I think he leads all rookies in plus minus. I mean, he may end up finding himself. Do they do a second team all NHL rookie team? If they do, he may find himself with some postseason honors, getting a second team all rookie. Maybe hard for the first team when you look at all these guys who are having good rookie seasons with Celebrini and Michkov and, obviously Lane Hudson and all these other guys that are just getting it done as rookies. If I'm forgetting somebody, I apologize. But yeah, so that's where we're at last night. I'm just a little bit devastated. Not devastated, but just disappointed, man, that the Blues lost that game against Pittsburgh. Because you want to see them get in the playoffs. I think it's so important for the Blues to get into the playoffs. Trade deadline was last Friday. People ask me, were you surprised? No, I'm never surprised when Doug Armstrong doesn't do much at the trade deadline. It's never really been his MO. We've seen him go for it in the past. When he's traded for Ryan Miller and, brought in Steve Ott, and he's made some headline moves at the deadline where you add guys. He's traded away guys leading up to the deadline. And I know people say, well, he didn't do anything at the deadline. Well, he did get Cam Fowler well ahead of the deadline before the calendar even changed to 2025. Back in December, they get Cam Fowler. So that to me is a trade deadline move, even though it didn't happen at the trade deadline. So sometimes you get out in front of it. The Blues were having a lot of conversations with a number of different teams. And whenever you see some of the hockey trades that were made, when you look at Dylan Cousins, for example, getting moved out of Buffalo, and some of the talk about other players from the Sabres potentially getting moved. And Josh Norris is one guy specifically from Ottawa who gets moved. There's some people in the Blues organization who, have a good feel for Josh Norris, what he brings to the table. He's a U.S. guy. You look at what he did a couple of years ago. He really has had some issues staying healthy. But he can put the puck in the net. He plays the center position, which is always big. I think there was some talk about potentially Braden Shen, his name being brought up, or certainly a deal with the Ottawa Senators. Shen made a decision that he just was not going to go anywhere. He wasn't going to waive his no trade, and I would never hold that against him. Actually, I think it's a positive. But now you want to see him continue to play at the level that he showed prior to the trade deadline and that he showed even after the trade deadline. Look at the first game that he played after the trade deadline. Friday night in Anaheim, scores had a beautiful goal, scored made some nice plays, helped the Blues obviously win the game. That's what you want to see moving forward or continue to see from Braden Shen. I don't worry about Shen. And I don't think it's a situation where the Blues were actively just trying to move him, but you know what? I think they know that time is coming. So what I would say in regards to Braden Shen, and I felt like this from the beginning, those type of deals typically happen or are more prone to happen in the summer than they are at the trade deadline. And I still think there's a good possibility we see something happen this summer. If there's this much noise about it now, leading up to the trade deadline, I think a lot of the groundwork has been laid to where I think there's a chance you see something happen in the summer. I think it's easier for a guy with a family to maybe look at a trade differently, accept a trade a little bit differently, give you more time to prepare and plan for a move when you involve a family. then maybe at the trade deadline where things can happen so quickly, especially when you have a connection with your current team and you want to help them get into the playoffs. Um, and I think that was important to Braden Shen. But would I be surprised if he got moved this summer? No. Am I expecting it to happen this summer? Kind of. Yeah, kind of. I'm not going to make any predictions, but am I expecting it to happen? Yeah, kind of. I don't see the Blues coming back with the same team next year. If Parayko doesn't go down, and listen, I saw Parayko the other day. He's walking around. Um, we'll see if it takes the full 6 weeks. If the Blues are out of the playoffs, I don't think they're going to push it to get him back in. And if the Blues are out of the playoffs, then I think you'll see guys like Dvorsky and Otto Stenberg and some other guys get at least a game or two. Jimmy Snuggerud, we'll see what happens there. I mean, they just kind of crapped the bed, did they not, against Notre Dame in their first-round matchup at the Big Ten tournaments, and now their focus is on the NCAA tournament. So they are already guaranteed to be in the NCAA tournament. And we'll see what Minnesota looks like and if they can find their way to the Frozen Four, or they could be an early exit. You just never know. They could lose early, and Snuggerud could be here before you know it. But I think if Snuggerud gets here, and then I do think if the Blues fall out, you're going to see Dvorsky get some games. Why wouldn't he get games? He had him down in the minors all year long. He's done what he's supposed to do. His game has kind of trended up and down a little bit at times. But, he was your representative for the All-Star. He's put up some decent numbers. I mean, good numbers, really, for a 20-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid. Like, you just don't see too many teenagers come into the American League and perform the way that he has. So I think at the very least, he's deserved an opportunity to get some games. I think that would invigorate the fan base, get people excited, give people a reason to watch. Should the Blues fall out, and with a handful of games left in the season that there's really no chance of them making the playoffs, you give people a reason to come down to the game and start thinking about moving forward into next season. Stenberg's another guy. I think I mentioned him already. But then you get Kazimaki, who's been, really, really good down there. People are high on Kazimaki. And I am too. This guy, who knows if he makes the team next season? You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and make any predictions because you don't know what the roster is going to look like and, who the Blues are going to sign in the offseason and what type of jobs are going to be open. You just don't know what jobs are open. But for a guy like Alex Santeri, you can call him Alec Kazimaki, man. He's from Finland. Third-round pick a few years back. He's having a good year down there. He's got 33 points. He's got some decent size. He plays center. He can play wing. I think he's been playing mostly wing in the American League. But he has played a lot of center in the past as well. So, he's a guy that no one really talks about that I think could be given a legit opportunity. And then we'll see what, some of these other guys, if they get a chance. And speaking of Otto Stenberg, people have asked about him too. He's got 12 points in 22 games since coming over right after the World Juniors. He's got 4 goals. So he's finding his way, obviously. Dvorsky's no longer leading the team in points. It's Matthew Pekka, who I talked about several weeks ago. I said Pekka is, of all the players who are being talked about down there, he's been talked about the most consistently. Like, people have really raved about Michael Pekka. Now, he's played NHL games in the past, and he's 31 years old, so it's a completely different situation. You're not really focusing on Matthew Pekka as a part of the future. Alexandrov, do you give him another look? Or do you really know who he is? Can you get excited when he performs well in the American League? And he is a more than a point per game guy. He's got 37 points in 33 games. I'm just not surprised to see that. He's just such a tweener. Like, he's better than the American League, but finding a role for him in the NHL has just been difficult. Finding consistency in the NHL has been difficult for him. So I don't know. That's another one that you got to look at. But Dvorsky, his numbers have gone down a little bit. He hasn't been scoring nearly as much as he was early in the year. He was he was putting up some real good numbers. He's now 39 points in 52 games. So not as impressive as it looked early in the year. And his game has kind of trended a little bit the wrong way over the last 4 or 5 weeks or so. So we'll see if he can get it together. But again, wouldn't be surprised if we see him get some games down the stretch should the Blues have games left where they don't typically mean a whole lot, and it doesn't look like they're going to get into the playoffs. But yeah, Ottawa, St. Louis, there was something going on there. Josh Norris, I think Ottawa was talking to a number of teams, and they ended up getting Dylan Cousins. Cousins looks good in Ottawa. Why would we be surprised? Look at all the players who have left Buffalo over the years and then moved on only to have success. We're going to talk some Florida Panthers with Bill Lindsay coming up. You see Bill Lindsay on NHL Network, played over 750 games in the NHL. He's been a long-time analyst. I got to get into the Panthers, man. What's going on there, man? They get Brad Marchand. Matthew Tkachuk obviously is hurt right now. Sam Bennett scoring goals. He had 2 more last night. They beat Toronto. You know they love beating Toronto. Aaron Ekblad is suspended for illegal substances. Lots to get into with Bill Lindsay. I'm looking forward to that conversation coming up here in just a couple of minutes on this edition of Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. How about the First Community Insurance Agency? Have you heard this? I don't have to tell you everything is more expensive than it used to be, because you already know that. But that also includes insurance, man. Insurance has just gone up. And I don't know what you have to do, but it just all adds up, and that's why you got to start shopping around. So don't just let your insurance renew and get charged higher premiums without doing your homework. You have to do it. Check out First Community, the credit union, a name you know and trust in St. Louis. And they want you to know about First Community Insurance Agency, too. They offer you a quote on anything from homeowners insurance to auto insurance to health insurance, even for your small business. Their dedicated staff knows insurance. They can help you answer any questions you have. So visit firstcommunity.com and check out the First Community Insurance. Home insurance, auto insurance, all insurance. Don't just renew, because sometimes that happens. Like, you don't even know your insurance is up for renewal, and then you get the big packet in the mail, and you realize, okay, well, just renewed. And sometimes that's easy because it just continues and you don't have to worry about it. But it is good to shop around and see what the best rates are. Check out firstcommunity.com. They've got unbelievable rates. Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Download that app today. They've got so many great deals. They call them steals. Tons of locations all around St. Louis for Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Don't sleep on the paper goods, all the party supplies. They've got the best selection of beer, wine, and booze. Some of their locations have drive-thrus, and some of them have curbside pickup too. So you can do all your shopping from the app, and then you don't even have to get out of your car. Like, it sounds too good to be true, but it is true. They got great cigars too. Don't sleep on the cigars at Dirt Cheap Fun. When it gets hot, I'll be hanging out in that beer cooler, man. When I get too hot, I'll just be hanging out in the beer cooler over at Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Great sponsor, longtime sponsor of what we do here on Hockey Sense. Love the Wallace family and everything they do to support the St. Louis community, support local business and the Wallace family over there at Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Blue Note Roofing, we talked about Dave Novak at the beginning of the show. We're expecting crazy weather tonight, like hail and like tornadic weather. I don't know what's going to happen. So just look for that yellow truck with the blue notes on it and call Dave Novak if you get some damage to your siding, gutters, soffit, fascia, roofing, whatever it is. He'll take care of you. 314-920-5713. David Novak, huge hockey fan. I'll talk pucks with you too. So again, man, we're getting some crazy weather. Crazy storms are coming. Blue Note Roofing will come in handy. Put that number in your phone. Call David Novak today. Again, 314-920-5713 for Blue Note Roofing. All right, let's step aside. We'll bring in Bill Lindsay, man. Looking forward to this conversation. Believe it or not, he's never been on the show with me. Even all the years doing radio and now bringing it to the podcast platform, I've never had Bill Lindsay on. I've seen him on over and over and over again. We got to talk some Florida Panthers and other action around the Eastern Conference and the NHL. We'll do that next. Jamal Mayers coming up later in the show. He'll join me in studio, so stick around for that. Don't go anywhere. All right, back here on Hockey Sense. Great to have you with us as always, Bill Lindsay. I was saying it's kind of crazy, man. I don't know if I've ever had Bill Lindsay on the show. I've seen him hundreds and hundreds of times, obviously, with NHL Network, and certainly remember you as a player, Billy. I mean, for a long time with Florida and Montreal. You finished your career, I want to say, in Atlanta. So you were kind of a little bit all over. But people,
I bounced around.
Yeah, people remember you as a member of the Florida Panthers. There's no question. So thanks for doing this, man. How long have you been in the media game?
Yeah, no longer than my playing career. So 18 years, I believe.
Wow.
Played a couple of years when I was done with the NHL over in Germany in the DEL.
Yeah.
Spent time, and somehow the radio job was open here. Asked about it, and they said, "Sure, you can do it." Started from there, just worked away, did a little bit of everything, and now it's lasted longer than my playing career.
So
So
are you
I was telling you off air, time goes fast.
I know, I know. Are you still doing the radio now in addition to like the NHL Network TV and stuff? Like you still do the
So
radio, right?
yeah, I do home radio. I do their learn to play programs that they have for the 5 to 9-year-old kids on the weekends. And then when they're on the road a lot, I'll go up to NHL Network. I'm about to head up in a couple of days here with them being out on the road, sort of trying to balance out. Then once the playoffs start, I get to travel. I get to soak it all in. So I get to go on the road and be with the team and enjoy that, especially that run last year.
Okay, so you'll do that during the playoffs. Is this team in Florida, are they better than they were at this time last year?
There's a possibility they're real dialed in defensively and the plug and place. And what you're starting to see is the emergence of some players like Mackie Samoskevich is playing really good hockey with the absence of Marchand and Kachuk. Once they get back in, we're going to have 2 fourth lines. It could be Boqvist and Samoskevich that go down there. Rodriguez, you got Gadjevich, you got Noshik, and Nico Sturm will be that fourth line center in 100%. Strengthens our penalty kill. And then once Ekblad gets back, misses the first 2 games. Hopefully those first 2 games of the playoffs go well, and you're healthy. Bill Zito's left no stone unturned. We needed a right shot defenseman. He got maybe the best one on the market. We needed a backup goalie. He gets that, and you're looking maybe into the fourth line. The faceoff percentage was kind of low. Barkov doesn't have to take all the draws. You bring in Nico Sturm, and then at the last minute, when you thought everything was done, somehow Brad Marchand left Boston, which was, I don't know how it happened. It happened at 2:59. Trade deadline was at 3, but Brad Marchand came over and kind of fits our DNA and style. So healthy, it looks like when all the pieces are together, this team could be better than last year.
Yeah, and listen, I give Bill Zito a lot of credit because he's pulling off all these deals and he's making things happen. But I think it does make it a little easier on him when you have all these star players who only want to go to Florida, right? They don't want to go anywhere else. I mean, you look at how Matthew Tkachuk, kind of steered the bus and he was able to obviously get himself to where he wanted to go in Florida. And the same thing with Marchand, man. I think he made it clear to Boston this is where he wanted to be. And he even gave Don Sweeney credit for helping to make that happen. So as great as Bill Zito is, I mean, Florida has now become the destination in the NHL.
It's popular, and it wasn't that case 5-10 years ago. It was a bad team. We went through a lot of really bad years and suffering. But what's happened with ownership, with Mr. Viola, the commitment to spend, and he started a chain with Bill Zito, do your job. He gets the okay, does Zito from the ownership to spend the money. It's at his discretion who he goes out and how he spends it, long as it's okayed. Once he gets the players, he sends them down to Paul Maurice, and Paul Maurice has full say-so on how he deploys each and every one of those players. So it's a real balance in our organization from top to bottom, that everyone has a specific job. And it's kind of like the team that Paul Maurice has structured. There's a job that everyone has in that lineup. There's a worth to every player, and there's a great bond and a relationship that goes a long way. Everything that's happened off the ice is now translated on the ice, and that's why this has become a destination. Winning, it helps. So does the sunshine and all that. We always had that, but players want to win. That's the bottom line. And part of Marchand, I believe, coming here, there could have been some noises in his ear at the Four Nations with Bennett and Reinhart. And I know they have a past, but I'm sure Bennett and Reinhart were mentioning some things about the locker room and everything that comes with it. Maybe that's why Brad Marchand maybe had Florida as a destination.
Yeah, and you mentioned the locker room, and that's one thing. If I talk to players who played for Florida or people who have been around the team, and even when Florida came to St. Louis and had a chance to kind of see it for in person, and we've had Paul Maurice on the podcast I do with Cam Jansen and other guys, and I know Jamie Compon real well. I mean, it may be the most professional team in the league. I mean, their locker room is so dialed in, Billy. You see it every single day. I mean, there's just no nonsense, man. Those guys come to work, they come to play, they want to win. And the way that team is built, I mean, they're so professional. I mean, do you see it the same way?
Yeah, it's exactly that. There's a great bond in that dressing room. And when good teams become great, you can speak to this, but in that locker room, there has to be a trust for the guy beside you that he's going to do his job. And when it starts with Barkov and it starts Kachuk, Bennett, you start to go down the list, how hard they're working in practice, how hard they're working in games. All of a sudden, you're sitting in your stall. And I had the same thing early on in Florida with some great mentors. But you're sitting in your stall, and if you play a bad game, Brian Scrudlin explained it to me the best. He said, Billy, if you play like that again, you're not only affecting yourself. I got a family to feed. I got to put, so your play affects a lot what happens to do. So that's where really good teams become great. When the fear of failure, when you walk home and you feel disappointed about your game, you're not disappointed for yourself. You're like, man, that guy was working so hard next to me and was going in. So you feel that burden, that onus to perform at that elite level when your star players are playing that way. And that's the kind of leadership that they have in that locker room, and it filters down. And that's is when the bonding becomes that true. Your fourth line guys, you have no choice on this Panther team. If you're a fourth liner, you better go through the wall when you watch Bennett and Kachuk play. So that's what's really happened off the ice here in Florida.
Okay, so Sam Bennett, he scores 2 more goals last night. We all know that he's a pending UFA. I mean, Billy, how important is he to this team? And just based on where we are on the schedule right now, I mean, it just looks like he's going to, at minimum, probably test the market. Who knows? Maybe he comes back. I've said all along that, Florida's the best spot for him. I mean, they value him. They know who he is. You look at who he was prior to coming to Florida and what that's done for his career. But I get it from a business standpoint. And, players have to do what they've got to do. How important is he to the overall success of that team?
Vitally. With Kachuk being out, I have all the respect, and we've missed Barkov for some time. But when Bennett goes out of the lineup, it seems to be the most noticeable for our team. He was a healthy scratch at the Four Nations, got in the lineup. You could see how important he was in that gold medal game that they ended up winning. He plays mean. He sets the tempo for the whole team. He's the straw that stirs the drink because it's nasty. When I'm going to hit you, I'm going to hit you not to rub you off the puck. I'm trying to run you through the end boards and through the glass. When I fight, I'm going to fight with every ounce of fury that I have in my body. I'm not there to hold on. I'm not there to tie up. When I'm going hard to the net, I'm a freight train. That's Bennett's personality going downhill, and it's infectious. It seems to energize the locker room. It really puts a lot of pep into the bench. You can feel it even up in the broadcast position when Bennett's humming and when he's going, it's like, watch out, boys. Here comes everyone. He has the ability to drag everyone into the fight with him. So talking about re-signing him, it is a good spot. We'll do everything that we can. Thank goodness the cap is going up. Hopefully continues that maybe there's some way to manage it. But we've missed him throughout some playoff games, some regular season games. Him out of the lineup with the way that he plays and his grit and determination is missed the most when he's out.
What is he, Billy? Is he 7.5? Is he 8? What's he looking at?
Yeah. Oh, I think 7's a good number to start with.
Yeah.
I think that's a decent number. The career, you're looking at, this is what he is. He's got 25 goals and maybe 55 points is exactly where it's going to be at. And Sam Bennett, part of this rotation changes. He's getting a few more extra points here because of the first power play unit duty.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden might change with Kachuk and Marchand back in the line. So you have to factor in that the hits, there's so much off the ice that goes into his game that is valued.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where all the swing of, you can't just say, oh, he's a 25 goal guy, 50-point guy. The intangibles are what's going to bring him more money on the open market than anything else, and his ability to play. So we'll see. But I think 7 is a good starting number and something that maybe we could do.
Yeah. And I mentioned the professionalism. It starts at the top with Paul Maurice. I hope Paul Maurice gets an opportunity to be behind that bench with Team Canada at the Olympics too. I mean, I don't know if the coaching staff automatically just carries over to the Olympics and how that works and whatnot. But he deserves that type of recognition too. He's been unbelievable for that entire organization. Well, what are you hearing about Marchand though? I know he's on the ice practicing. Well, when can we expect to see him in a game, and who do you expect him to play with?
Yeah, it's upper body. You never know. We got some assumptions, but upper body. So he does have the ability to skate, which you're talking about, the ability to practice. So once that upper body area heals, it looks like a week, maybe week and a half, that he could maybe get back into this lineup. So he'll be in shape. That's the good part of it. With Marchand, who he plays with, there's a chance with his checking ability that he could fit on that Lundell-Luostarinen line with Marchand. If you want the Rat Pack and maybe the chirpiest line in the league, you put Bennett, Tkachuk, and Marchand together,
That's what I want.
and you mic all three of them up for a game.
Yeah.
All three of them. You, you would have enough for about a 6-hour mini series if you mic them up for just one game. That top line with Reinhart, Verhaeghe, and Barkov, that's gonna stay intact, especially Reinhart and Barkov. They're kind of two peas in a pod. But the flexibility, Paul Maurice has moved it around, has shuffled it all the times. Everyone has played kind of up, so it could go in a blender. I believe Marchand is going to get a chance to play with all three lines. Put it that way.
Okay.
And he'll find out. He'll play with Barkov at some time. He'll play with Tkachuk and Bennett, and then that Lundell-Luostarinen line. And then Paul's going to figure out where he fits best.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's why you have options, and they're good, right? So, you just kind of pick and choose where you want to, slot them in, and nothing should really change that much. Tkachuk, are you hearing anything differently? I mean, I think it's a little tougher to put a timetable on his injury.
Yeah, that's one you can't skate with. So that's a groin and coming back from that. So that has to heal before you. Then there's the conditioning part of it that hopes to go in. So hopefully he heals sooner than faster. With the Ekblad suspension, I believe that we do have some room if he does get ready a few games early before the Stanley Cup playoffs. That maybe we could jam him in. But they're looking. I believe the target is hopefully to get him in at the latest at some point in that first round. They're not exactly sure how fast the progress, but if anyone heals fast and comes back from injuries, it's Tkachuk.
Yeah.
So I would learn to sooner than later, whatever the time frame was. I would expect it to be a few days sooner for Tkachuk, but they're definitely hoping for that first round, whatever the case is.
Yeah. You're 100% right, and you're gonna have a hard time keeping him out anyway if it gets close. Best case scenario is you make quick work of the first round, and you get a little bit of a break, and you don't have to force him in there in the first round, and maybe he joins the team in the second round, with more rest and more opportunity to get healthy. But can you win without Tkachuk? I mean, is the team good enough to go the distance without him?
You can win. I don't know about the distance as a rule of the playoffs. Winning the Atlantic's going to be ginormous.
Yeah.
To avoid that 2-3 seed, we saw Toronto and Florida go at it last night. That's a heavyweight tilt, and you could see how both those teams are. And Tampa Bay goes up and down, struggles, but Tampa Bay's version of what we faced in the playoffs last year is better.
Yeah.
For sure. So there's that was a big game for the Panthers. They still have two more against the Leafs. It does ease your route if you get that. Maybe somewhat. You never know what happens with a wild card, but preferably this is 1 year, I believe, in the Metro and the Atlantic that you want to try and get in there and face wild card teams. If that does happen, there's an extra leeway for Tkachuk to save up and make sure he's ready. But once you get into those latter rounds, you have to have every piece.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it against Vegas when Tkachuk was hurt, Ekblad, Montour, their shoulder. There was no chance in hell that we were going to stay with those guys. We were working on duct tape last year. Knock on wood, we were healthy.
Yeah,
and we needed every ounce of that health to squeak it out in Game 7. So you need everyone pretty much going. It's hard to imagine winning it without Tkachuk.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk isn't going to be 100% this year. Even if he comes back, he's just not going to be. And you may have to wait till next year before he's at 100%. But an 85% Tkachuk is better than pretty much every other player in the league. So you get him back into even less than 100%, you'll take it. Is the team mad at Ekblad? I mean, how are they handling this? I mean, this is not ideal at all to put your team in this situation. I do like the way that he handled it. I mean, he took ownership of it. We see far too many athletes who just, I don't know how it happened. I didn't do it. It's like they just stuck something in my body and they did this to me. They finger point and whatever. He owned it. And I give him credit for doing that, but they can't be too happy about this. Plus, he's got a contract situation going on. I just wonder how that impacts, the decision-making moving forward.
You'll be interested. The team's not mad at him. People make mistakes.
Yeah. Okay.
They have to come back from. Valerie Nichushkin's a perfect example. They want him in Colorado. He's bailed on him a couple of twice, not in the regular season, but the playoffs for different kind of issues. So you fail at life, you make mistakes, and when you do, the best way is to own up with it. So Ekblad made a mistake. It's not the first time, won't be the last time. I'm sure Bill Zito and everyone had a talk with him. He should have ran it by our team doctors, what he was putting into his system. So then you just have to look at from the viewpoint is you did the crime. Now you got to do the time.
Yeah.
And when you get back, we'll go from there. We'll see what happens. If he comes back and he's rested and we go on a deep playoff run, everyone forgets all about this.
The silver lining. It's like the blessing in disguise.
The silver lining. So no, look, your teammates, you're valued, you're trusted. If you don't make mistakes in this life, you're not human. This one, unfortunately, was costly for Ekblad and probably won't do it again, I hope. And takes ownership. No problems on or off the ice in a major way that will hurt this team.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
But just contract negotiations, yes, that could factor in.
You think they knew this was coming in advance of the Seth Jones trade or no?
I don't think so. I believe once you get popped, it becomes news pretty quick.
Right away? Okay.
So, I think you do the urine test, and once it goes in, it only takes a day or two to analyze that. And once it comes back, they're not waiting on a week to say, okay. From everything I've known about it in the past is that the turnaround is pretty quick and the announcement is pretty immediate once you do that test. So there was no foreshadowing to get Marchand or get Seth Jones. Paul Maurice was excited to get Seth Jones so he could only play 22 minutes a night.
Wow.
Now he's back up to 27, 28 minutes a night. So if they had a plan in place, but none of it had to do with any kind of foreshadowing that Ekblad was going to miss this time.
Yeah. I just didn't know if there's a positive test and then they have him retest to make sure that it was accurate and all that type of stuff just to double check.
Yeah, I'm not 100% either. So it just goes back. I just have a hard time believing that they understood this was coming down the pipeline like a week early.
I'm with you. Hey, you mentioned finishing first, man, how important that is in the division. What do you think of Toronto? You see them play last night, and you mentioned how much better Tampa Bay is playing right now. Who's the biggest competition, in your opinion, for Florida?
Yeah, looking at it, that game against I did Toronto radio this morning, and they were just, before I came on, I was listening, just beating up the Leafs on the game. And I was just pulling through the analytics of the game. You're not going to get time and space against us. It's going to be hard. And you're going to have to play dump and chase. And the Maple Leafs dumped it in 70% of the time. But what they ended up with was 7 inner slot chances to 1. We had 1 at even strength. They got the zone time, which rarely happens against us. Positive zone time numbers. We're the best screen team in the NHL. We didn't get any bodies in front of Anthony Stolarz. We still played a good game, good structure. But the Leafs, they're close in a tight, that's how it's going to be played in the playoffs. The run and gun, why Paul Maurice changed our systems is to look like a game does last night. And I thought the Leafs handled it pretty well. Egregious mistakes of OEL punching Samoskevich in the face, too many men on the ice, penalty. Our power play was better. Our special teams are better. That was it. But the Maple Leafs pose a threat. And then I've seen Tampa so much over the years that just knowing if Vasilevsky was not himself last year, and it looks with the addition of Bjorkstrand and Gord that this is a more balanced crew with Kucherov and Plain. They score. That's the one team that can stretch us out with the way that they pass and can get opportunities, make the gaps a little bit wider. But personally, I think either of them are, with the rivalry we have with Tampa Bay that's been built in, or even Toronto, you go into that, if that's your first round matchup, it's going to take a while, and you're going to take a beating just trying to get out of that first round.
Yeah, no doubt. Although, you know what would have improved those inner slot shot statistics in the net front? It's Marchand and Tkachuk. Those numbers would have looked a little bit differently.
Yeah, they would have looked. Yeah, it was funny, but there's only three odd man rushes in the whole game, 2 for Toronto, 1 for us. That shows you how tightly checked it was. And I give Craig Berube credit with kind of changing that style. They say Austin Matthews not scoring 5-on-5, but they're not a team that's trying to do what they did last year, is just exploit you off the rush. And when we won that President's Trophy, man, we were high octane. with just gunning. And I thought, wow, highest. And then we got in the playoffs, won the first round, then just got crushed.
Yeah.
Four straight by Tampa. That's when Paul Maurice said, yeah, this is fun and games. We're not going to have fun and games anymore. It's going to be a little bit more lunch pail and hard hat to dump it in style. And Craig Berube's got the Leafs pointed in that direction. Forget about the numbers of the team. Just kind of look at if they're able to play into those kind of gritty, hard games. And I thought they fared pretty well last night.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. And that's what Chief will do. Like he's not there to get Matthews to score 70. He wants to win a Stanley Cup, and Matthews is going to want to win a Stanley Cup. It's almost like how Ken Hitchcock adjusted Brett Hull's game when he went to Dallas, years ago. He wasn't brought there to score 50, 60 goals. He was there to help them win. And his number, I think he scored 24 goals his first year there in Dallas, and they won a Stanley Cup. So listen, if he can do that with Matthews, I don't know what they are. I mean, Toronto's difficult to really get a full feel of what they are. It's almost like you just can't judge them until the playoffs.
Only one way in Toronto to feel it.
Yeah.
They're not judged by the regular season anymore.
No.
Like
they still get angry. They still get angry after a loss. You know what I mean? It's like, calm down. Like, you guys know that it's all about the playoffs.
Yeah. The 82 games are just, once everyone forgets about it, once you start that first playoff round, and that's where this group of Tavares, Nylander, Matthews, and everyone, if they don't do it this year, that core, you're going to have to make an adjustment to it, I believe. I'm not sure, but this is year after year of trying to get through. So Matthews, if he has an average regular season and then blows up in the playoffs, that changes the whole narrative around him. Same thing with Marner.
What if Marner has a terrible playoff?
Then it doesn't change the narrative, and that's or Matthews. Then you're like, can we win this with this guy? And the answer might be no.
Right.
It might. That might be the answer if you can't get it done when it means crunch time.
Marner and Bennett, they've got the same agent, so like it's going to be interesting to see how. I love talking to him because, I mean, he just knows he's in the driver's seat as the agent, with two guys that are going to be as high profile as we've seen if they both get to July 1st. That we've seen in quite a while. That'll be a lot of fun. Won't be fun for Florida fans and won't be fun for Maple Leaf fans, but for the rest of the hockey world, it certainly will be. So, Billy, great stuff, man. I appreciate it. We'll do this again. All the best to you and the Panthers down the stretch here, and I hope you don't mind if I call again during the playoffs.
Yeah, anytime at all. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. Love the jersey and behind you there, too.
There's a USA one over there. Jamal Mayers is coming in. When he sits down in that chair, we'll see the USA one. But I put the Canada one up here for you.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Yeah, we'll talk down the road.
Okay, Billy. Take care.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's Bill Lindsay. Good conversation with him. I really enjoyed that, and hope you enjoyed it as well. 314 Sports Cards. Listen, they've got the 314 special because this weekend is 314 here in St. Louis, right? March 14th. And they got a bunch of stuff going on, like huge deals on your favorite hockey cards if you're into collecting cards. You heard about 314 Sports Cards for months and months and months here on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. So 314 Day. They got a big weekend sale, 50% off bargain boxes. Friday through Sunday. So it goes March 14th through the 16th. They're going to have giveaways, free packs, so much more. So join us in celebrating 9460 Olive Boulevard in Olivet, right next to the Tuesday morning. You can't miss it. Devin, the whole crew will be in there. Make sure you tell them that Andy Strickland sent you from Hockey Sense. And you'll enjoy it there with 314 Sports Cards. Lordo's Diamonds, I should say. Right there in the heart of Ladue, 314-432-8008. Right next to Truffles. If you're looking to pop that question and get that special someone in your life, something special, do it from Lordo's Diamonds. Best selection of engagement rings, best selection of all types of jewelry, and most importantly, the best customer service. That's why they've been in business for over 70 years. Mike, Jimmy, Lordo, Pat, everybody. I mean, these guys are the absolute best. Again, right there in the heart of Ladue. Lordo's Diamonds, baby. 314-432-8008. This is Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Jammer joins me next in studio. Don't go anywhere. All right, let's bring in Jamal. I don't need my headphones.
That's it.
I was saying in the beginning of the show, I know the Blues dominated the game in the the ice was tilted and whatever, but it's just when you consider everything, what's at stake, where they are in the standings, where we are in the season, I can't look at that and find any real silver lining in losing that game.
We probably have talked about this in the past, but mindset is so critical at the National Hockey League level. And for me, they didn't have the right mindset to start the game.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing against a team that has played decently lately, but they do have that here we go again in the way that their year has gone.
Their DNA.
And so if you start the game and you'd say, hey guys, we go out and we go after them for the first 15 minutes, first period, and we find a way to jump on them and get that 2-goal lead, you make the rest of the game easy. So I find it like, I don't know if maturity is the thing,
mm-hmm.
but awareness of understanding, like, who's my opposition, where's their mental psyche, like that would be like something I would bring to the table as a third, fourth line guy, creating that immediacy. And I think in some parts the third and fourth line did have a good game.
They did.
But I would have liked to see them, once you saw, and I'm not taking Monty knows his team, but I think once you saw how they were good, but not like really getting after it.
Yeah.
Those are the games where you inject those guys a little bit more into the game to have them affect the game.
Third and fourth
line. I think that those are the games where you have to lean on them. It's like back-to-backs.
Mm-hmm.
It's like games where you haven't played in 4 days, games where
you just got to have a feel.
You got to have the feel where those guys are your
right.
And I feel like they have that in them because they tried to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, put them out there a little bit more than normal. It doesn't mean they play like that the whole game,
right.
But especially early, even start them. Like we're coming after them.
Because I think this is the time of year, Jamal, where some players, they even look at their own personal numbers. You know what I'm saying? They're like, okay, I've got 15 games left in the season to get to 30 goals, to get to 60 points, to get to whatever, you know what I mean? And they start maybe getting a little bit, veering off the game plan a little bit. But we can talk about all of that until we're blue in the face, and you can talk about the third and fourth line and whatever, who did play better. And, we saw an adjustment late in the game with Bolduc sliding up and replacing Neighbors. And, as many shots as they had on goal, it just felt like the passing was a little bit off. I mean, they just didn't look overly dangerous. When you don't have grade A goaltending, I mean, the entire complexion of your team looks different. And Binnington wasn't good enough, and for this time of year, for what you need from your goaltender, he was not as good as they need him to be in order to win. It's just the bottom line.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think he would say the same thing. It was an off night. He hasn't had many of those this year. But one thing you really like about him is I think he showed a tremendous amount of leadership and ownership and personal growth in the last year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see him flying off the handle and doing those things of that nature. Like he would be the first one. I don't feel bad saying that. He would be like, yeah, obviously I didn't have my game, no big deal. So the good thing about great goaltenders is their bounce back ability, if that's even a word, but their ability to park things and move on. And there's no question that guys believe that he'll bounce back.
Maybe it'll be a game where, you thought that they would beat Pittsburgh, maybe lose to Minnesota, and maybe the opposite will happen. They can still salvage the road trip for sure by winning on Saturday night. What's it like having like a break like that? I mean, they were off for 3 or 4 days. Is that an excuse, or can that really impact a goaltender who's feeling it, who's in that rhythm?
Yeah, I can. I think it's a challenge. I can't speak for goalies, but for players, it's almost like you lose your sharpness. And the coaches try. I'm sure they created some scrimmage environments, but you can't replicate as much as you try that intensity. I think that Pittsburgh was really content about keeping things to the outside, and they were fine letting the Blues have the puck, and they did have a lot of offensive zone time. It's where was the willingness to get there in front of Jari in those second chances, especially early. Jari looked shaky, and
everybody knew how great he was. I mean, he made a lot of saves, but I mean, pucks were like bouncing out of his glove and stuff
falling on his butt. Like I never liked when a goalie falls backwards. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, what are you doing? So,
and I don't think the Blues had those deflections, the screens in front. They had some opportunities off the rush to make plays. Pucks are in skates. It just wasn't very clean from that standpoint. So I don't know. It is what it is. Zachary Bolduc, what do you think of him? He's at 12 goals now. What's his upside? Like, do you see enough there that you've seen that you think this guy, he's got a lot of room to grow and he has a chance to be really good, or you still need to see more from him to find out?
I think he's shown he's an NHL player.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's shown he could be a third line guy, meaning he'll score 15 to 20. The question is, do you see him in a top 6? I'm not sure if that's there. But I think he's proven enough to be given an opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm. Power play.
Yeah, definitely second unit power play. And like, he has a tremendous shot and a nose for the net. And I think that's where I kind of land with him. He's definitely a third line guy. We can put him in that third line left wing hole. Let's see through the end of this season if he can provide a little bit more. And maybe it takes another year where he's a third line guy, pops up in the top 6 for 12 to 15 games, gets an extra 6 or 7 goals, ends up around 20, 21, 22. And then the next year, he becomes a second line guy.
Yeah.
So I think that let's not get too far ahead of ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of questions that were answered this year. Like, is he an NHL guy? That's answered.
Yeah.
And that's a positive for him and his career. And for the Blues to find a guy that is as big as he is, can shoot the puck as well as he is, and it's starting to translate at the NHL level.
All right, the first time that I heard a conversation about Mikko Rantanen being moved twice in one season and being moved again prior to the trade deadline from Carolina if they weren't going to be able to sign him, was on this show. I mean, you and I talked about this shortly after the trade about, hey, listen, if Carolina isn't going to keep him, they're going to have to move him again. And, then you learn more about what's going on behind the scenes and the conversations between Rod Brind'Amour and Mikko Rantanen. I want to start with Brind'Amour's comments, though, when, he's basically calling out the general manager and the owner, being like, I don't know how you make this deal without first finding out if he wants to be here. I mean, that is just a colossal mistake that could set this organization back. I mean, they just traded Marty Necas. They traded Drury, who's a good player. They traded Mikko Rantanen. 3 of those guys they traded for Logan Stankoven and 2 first-round picks. I mean, that's what they traded, right? For a guy, and I like Stankoven. Listen, he brings a ton of energy, and I thought that he would contend a little more for the Calder Trophy coming into this year. Watching him in the playoffs last year, he's a little Energizer bunny who plays hard. And I don't know what they do with the first-round picks. They're not going to be high first-round picks that they're getting from the Dallas Stars just based on the seasons that they're having now and what they're expected to have moving forward. So what's your take on all of this? And if you're Rod Brind'Amour, you just got to be going crazy right now.
Oh, I think that his frustration is warranted. I think that the comments that I heard Kluski say that was the risk they were willing to take, and they kind of knew he might.
Initially, right?
You don't make that trade. That's not a risk you take.
It's not fantasy hockey.
What are you doing? And it's like, okay, I just don't understand how that. You have to know the market you're in, and if you're you don't make that trade without it being a sign and trade. I don't even understand it.
Listen, because the player, Mikko Rantanen, he knows his contract's about to expire. He's starting to think about locations and destinations that would fit he and his family and their lifestyle moving into next year. He wasn't expecting Colorado to move or make the trade when the trade was made. And there was some talk about Carolina maybe a month prior to the trade and whatnot, but it completely blindsided him. But I think it's a conversation that you have to have. Colorado would certainly give you permission to talk to him if you're going to make that deal. But you got to have that conversation, just like Toronto would go have with Mitch Marner. Would you want to waive your no trade to go to Carolina? And he said no, even though that, Rantanen didn't have a full no trade or no move. You at least find out if Carolina is a place that you would entertain signing an extension with. And if the answer is no, you don't move Marty Necas just to get him for a few weeks.
No, it's almost like he's on a publicity tour after Rod Brind'Amour's comments to dampen the error. But I think he's digging a deeper hole every time he tries to explain his decision making, and that trying to justify that it was a calculated and well thought out risk.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It wasn't a well thought out risk, and it was a colossal error on his part. And it's, to me, an example of how there are really smart people that look at charts and look at graphics and look at fits based on math and don't have a sense or a feel about the people component and the hockey side of it, and perhaps don't do the due diligence to figure out if that player will sign. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
It would take one conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, you're an entrance agent. I'm Tulusky. Listen, we can go as high as 13 times 8. We can give him that extra year. If I make this trade, will he sign this? That you don't need to come and visit.
Right.
You don't need to come. I'm offering you almost $100 million. Will you sign? That's it.
And if he says yes and then gets there and then says no, that's a little bit of a different story, right?
Well, then you don't make the trade.
Right.
You just put the contract in front of him.
And you have him to sign it beforehand. Yeah.
We've seen examples of this before, right?
Yeah.
Like the simplest one that people will come to mind is when Prong signed with Edmonton, who got traded. He didn't accept the trade and it helped when he had, I don't know what it was, $80 million to say we're moving to Edmonton. Like, doesn't mean, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't go there without that contract.
Right.
So I just think that you don't make that trade. No offense, you're not a destination where people are.
Why isn't it?
I'll tell you why.
And how much of it has to do with that, in addition to their style of play? Because he made it clear from the very beginning that it wasn't a good fit for his family in Carolina, but the hockey on the ice wasn't a good fit for his playing style.
The reason why it's not a good fit hockey-wise is that their team funnels pucks to the net. That's how they generate. It's about volume. And then, yes, they have skill, but I think you would see a lot more from their top-end skill players not in that environment. It's a winning environment. It's a winning formula, but probably not one that Rantanen likes to use the width of the ice, likes to hold on to the puck.
Freewheel a little bit.
Completely different type style that he likes to play. So there's no question that you're having that issue there. And then you're talking about like, how would it be a fit like city-wise? Well, reason why is, I'm sorry, you're playing at a college rink. The facilities aren't great.
Yeah.
And if you live there, I have no doubt, because a lot of people love living there, love retire there. And the area is amazing.
Paul Stastny, when he went there, he said, man, we considered like, settling down there. Great place to raise a family.
Yes. It's the same. I'll give you the same explanation. When people talk about St. Louis and you just stay downtown, no offense to downtown, but as a visitor, Canadian, never been there, European, you're like, why does everybody like to stay here? Because you haven't visited the outskirts and the Chesterfields and the Creve Coeurs and the Ladou's and all those Claytons, and you haven't seen that side of the city. And unfortunately, when you're visiting Carolina, you don't get to see the nice sides of Raleigh and all in the encompassing area. You just realize, like, where's the downtown? You're at a college campus. Like, what's going on? We're staying at a hotel. There's nothing around you. There's one restaurant. Like, but that's not what it is when you live there. And players are like, okay, I don't think I want to live there.
Yeah.
Like, that's they should know that.
Right. And trust me, like everyone knows, like they knew, like a team like Dallas, for example, could sign him. You know what I mean? And that was probably a team that he had his eyes on from the beginning. Anyway, just a colossal error, and we'll see how it impacts Carolina moving forward. The Gretzky chase. Your thoughts on that? Like, I mean, you think he's going to get it done this season? You think it's going to carry over into next year? What does this mean for hockey?
He will get it done this year. That's what.
You have a problem with the empty net goals and all that, or no?
No, I don't want the last one to be an empty netter, but Gretzky had empty netters. I mean, and I heard your comment when Holly had 86 that he didn't have a single empty netter. And I tried to look it up. Did he?
No.
You really didn't? You've looked it up?
Didn't have an empty. I think he only had like 8 in his entire career.
And he didn't play all the games. I looked at that. He only played like 72, or like he missed some games.
I think Adam Oates missed a bunch of games too.
Well, I mean, that's a big difference. A guy like that on that pace, if he plays those extra 8 games, he could have.
He could have 96.
He could have 9 goals. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so he missed some games, which is remarkable. I don't have a problem with the empty netters. I just don't want him to have, 6 of the last 8 be empty netters. I mean, and I don't think he wants the last one to be an empty netter either. I think it would be cool if he has the chance to tie it and dumps it in. That would be something cool. I don't think he wants that highlight to be an empty net. I think it should be a one-timer on a power play.
Oh, that'd be great.
But yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, he had 86 in 78 games.
Okay, so he missed a few.
Yeah, missed 4 games. I mean, but so he could have gotten to 90, you know. But Adam Oates that year, which is just crazy to me. Okay, so Adam Oates, he only played in 61 games that year. What if he plays in 82 games? In 61 games, he had 90 assists.
Whew.
You know, so
And I wonder how many of those
how
now
many
were
did
for.
Brett Hall have in 61 games? Was he at 70? I mean, how many goals was he at? Was he at 60 goals
Right.
in 61 games? I mean, so he scored another 20. So it's not like he assisted on every single one of his goals. And he still had 90 assists in 61 games. If this guy plays a full season or gets to 75, 80 games, how many goals is Brett Hall having that year?
You know what's great? I bet you no one could answer that question better than Adam Oates.
Oh, I've asked him on our podcast a couple times.
And I bet you he would say, I could have added another 15 for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be my guest.
But I mean, I don't like seeing all the. I don't like seeing when he doesn't score and then it's like gets the empty netter and it's like. And I know empty net goals mean something because they basically solidify a win or cement a win.
Yeah.
But a lot of the empty net goals he's getting is like teams are pulling the goalie against Washington when they're up by 2. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I just think let's not try to look through the weeds at it. I don't think it's healthy if he's 8 away for tying, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's good if 6 of the 8 away from tying are empty netters.
Right.
If 3 of the 8 are empty netters,
Which
no big
might happen, yeah.
I think when you get over it, I don't want half of the goals to be empty netters. Let's put it there.
He's the all-time leader in empty net goals, but he's the all-time leader in every other goal too. Which is why, and listen, I didn't even know this, but Panger Cam told me that Pang took some heat because he called him a one-trick pony on TNT. I don't know if that's exactly what he meant, but I know he probably regrets that comment a little bit just because of the way people have reacted. I don't know if that's exactly what he meant, but I mean, he does score in completely different ways. I just don't think you could ever call this guy a one-trick pony because he's got over 3,000 hits and he goes around crushing guys anyway,
Yeah, I think that what's probably most remarkable is his durability.
Oh my God. So for his physical.
For as physical as he's been, I kept thinking like he's going to have to slow down. Like he's running around like
how many runs did you and him?
Only a handful. He was very aware where people were.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of hard to catch him. And he weighed 230
and
pounds.
He's fast as
shit. So if he sees you, you're going to look silly because he's going to give you the reverse shoulder.
Oh.
And I wasn't really out there against him 5-on-5 very much. I killed against him a lot, and we had the OV shade, meaning we'd shift everything over and
and it still couldn't be stopped.
Still couldn't be stopped because you're getting the lane. He'd find the holes.
Is Draisaitl scoring the same way on the other side of the ice right now?
A little lower, and Draisaitl
closer to the goal line.
Yeah, very similarly. This is my analysis of it. People think, and I try to tell our younger players, that they're picking a spot. They're not picking a spot. They're beating the goalie to the spot. And the difference is how quickly they get it off and beat the goalie to the spot. Where they shoot is the most important part. They're not like picking the top corner or they're not picking something. They're beating the goalie to the spot. If you watch any of Ovechkin's goals on the one-timers, he's not picking corners. Like for me, like on the one-timer, Billy Guerin would pick spots. He'd shoot back the other way. He'd be picking spots. Whereas I feel like Ovechkin is just, it literally feels like sometimes he's hitting the middle of the net.
Yeah.
Because he beat the goalie to where he was trying to go.
His shot is quicker and his release is quicker than for the goalie to get over.
Yes, and you'll see a lot of Draisaitl shots are not under the. No. They're not just over the pad. They're literally hip high. Mm-hmm. They're just beating the goalie to the spot.
And
that's
you gotta and the common equation here with all these great goal scorers who do have these unreal one-timers and whether it's Stamkos on the left side of the ice, Obi on the left side of the ice, now you have Draisaitl on the right side of the ice, is they all play with great passers.
Yes.
I mean, McDavid's just putting these, and the goalie has to honor the reality of McDavid's shooting too, right? It's not as predictable as maybe Backstrom. You knew his pass was coming.
Yeah.
McDavid may shoot, and he does these no-look passes.
I think to your point, I would say that Draisaitl is more similar to Lemieux in regard to his one-timers, because Lemieux used to get lost like almost to the goal line. In fact, I remember watching him in warm-up, and he scored in the game against us doing this. He was literally straddling the goal line
I know.
and was one-timing pucks in warm-up,
Oh, and warm up.
and then beat Brent Johnson on literally his left foot was on the goal line. So not straddling it, but left foot on the goal line on the power play. Like, who's worried about this guy on the goal line? Because the goalie's coming out
Yeah.
to challenge the shooter.
Ovi scored some goals like
And
that
he's
too.
shooting from the goal line.
Yeah.
And if I did that 100 times, it probably missed the net 80.
Yeah. Ovi would score some goals close to the goal line too. Yeah. Most people probably couldn't do what Mario Lemieux did.
No.
It's just Brett Hull, a little bit of a different of a one-timer. Like, I mean, he would score some one-timers from the left side, but he would come up over the top
The
and
brilliance-
in the circles. He'd score from all.
So let's say I was the offside forward killing the penalty.
Mhm.
Brett Hall's genius would be the easy play to cover is if you come in front of me, then I'm like, see you, and I try to come take you away. He'd always go behind the penalty killer that's on the offside.
Like
so you-
lower.
So the puck's over here. He would come around this guy on the offside
Mhm.
forward. The puck's in the half forward or the point, and he would get lost behind you and then come down the middle between both guys
Mm.
and receive the one-timer. And so you wouldn't know where he was as a penalty killer.
Mhm.
And you should talk to him about that. That was probably, he's like, yeah, of course I did that there. Why would I go this way? He'd see me. So, but
Yeah.
think about it. Brett Hall, we know who was getting the puck, but we couldn't, in reality, you didn't know where he was because the puck's over here and he'd come behind you.
Yeah. Last thing before we go. Kids' youth hockey seasons are wrapping up now. But, they have tryouts. They get right into the spring season, right? So spring season will pick up in late March. That'll take you into late May. Some kids have stuff going on in the summer. They've got camps. They've got tournaments. They play for tournament teams and whatever. What do you recommend in terms of the pacing for parents and for kids? I mean, do you just continue to move forward and just like you've done all year long? I mean, how do you just go based on the schedule? I mean, is it too much, or if your kid can handle it, you just let him do it?
I think you have to, let's say you have to listen to your kid, and you have to listen through their energy level and their desire based off of what they're giving you energy wise. And having said that, you also have to be able to pull back and say, for example, we're probably doing 3 things this summer, but we probably could do 6.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's hard to say no and not do certain things. But as much as your 10, 11, 12-year-old would say, I want to do all of it.
Right.
As a parent, you have to be able to say no. Now, do they have to do any of it? The answer is no. You're not going to fall behind because you didn't do summer stuff. You might initially fall behind in the sense of, but that will be recovered in the 3 weeks when things start back up, ramping up again. So I would caution parents from chasing it and feeling like they have to do those things. Listen to your kid, pick certain things, do a little bit of it. My suggestion would be never more in the summer months. My general rule is we'll do one every 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
We won't ever do.
What are you doing between those?
Well, there's enough spring stuff. You're doing spring skates, which is once a week. That's enough.
It is.
It is. And then that's all they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then so if you do one every 3 to 4 weeks in the summer, you're doing one in May, you do one in June, you do one in July, and boom, you're done.
Okay.
I would not do more than that because kids need to have a summer as much as they love it.
Yeah.
Not only that it's healthy for them to get out of the boot of the skate, let them develop like they're growing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't be locked in a boot all summer. And playing other sports, it is invaluable. Let's put it this way. It's probably unrealistic when people say they need to play multiple sports till they're 15.
Yeah.
But they do need to play multiple sports at even the CYC church league level.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking 3 different sports until they're 13.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you do have to dial in a little bit more when you get past that age. But I think that it's important for them to play baseball, basketball, soccer, and do those things. It doesn't have to be at the highest level, just to even for their mental capacity of not being the best, meeting different people, growing in their proprioception and athleticism. But there is going to become a time where you have to dial it in a little bit and focus on
Does the AAA season start too early, like August 1st? I mean, is that too?
What I think they've missed, and it's probably very difficult to fix, is that when we're talking about kids and tryouts, kids grow so much from May to August.
Tryouts are too
The
early.
tryouts are too early. So a kid that does not get the time to improve from May, June, July, August, and then all of a sudden, if you had the tryouts in the beginning of August, which I don't know if you could even do that, but that's what we used to do as kids in Toronto, you're allowing those kids 3 months of development and growth.
And you can really improve
And
over
athleticism.
summer, right?
Yes.
Some kids grow 4 inches in a summer.
Exactly. But instead, we're picking these teams in May.
Yeah.
So I think that you are going to miss some, and that's the challenge. And then you've got the other issue of, like, you know, some coaches pick teams to win, and I think the error that they're making is sometimes it's better to let a kid go and grow on a lower team with the opportunity to have the puck more, to grow more, so that you come back. Because selfishly, and I've done this, you don't take the team or all the players that are going to help you win all the time. Sometimes you realize, you know what? I could take him, but I'd have to simplify his game, and it would help us win more hockey games.
Yeah.
But it's better for him at 11 to go have the puck, play a different level of competition, and continue to grow in confidence.
And the kid may have fun
and then
doing
come
that.
back.
He may have more fun doing that too.
Exactly.
So, all right, Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Well, unbelievable. They've been around for over 40 years, and let me tell you, the good folks over at Dobbs and Tires, they locally operated since 1976. And today, that's the area's largest retailer of tires and expert auto service. Now, with over 43 store locations, Dobbs is offering unbelievable deals on new tires. Doesn't matter if it's Cooper, Continental, BF Goodrich. Go to Dobbs.com for more complete details. They give you valuable deals. It doesn't matter what you drive, a car, light truck, van, SUV, hybrid, or EV. They will get you up, in, out, in, up, out.
Fixed.
That's it. Fixed. In, up, fixed, and out. Same day.
Same day, baby. What's for dinner?
Well,
you know the weather we're getting tonight, by the way. So you better get out there and pick it up early.
I know. 5 restaurants, Barlino's Salt, Ballerina's Osteria, Chris's Pancake and Dining, Chris is at the docket. And don't forget about Barlino's new one, the Twin Oaks. Unbelievable. They forge many lasting relationships with their customers. Their family motto, cook good food, serve plenty. 50 plus years in business. Only 2 places to dine, at home or at one of Bartolino's family of restaurants.
Some great youth hockey here in St. Louis this weekend. I mean, in addition to the Blues obviously playing Saturday in Minnesota, Sunday they're home against Anaheim, so that should be a great game. They've got a bunch of home games coming up moving into next week. But the regional championships for AAA teams are being hosted here in St. Louis this weekend with the U15, U16, U18, maybe even the U14s too.
Right.
So if you want to go check that out, that's going to be at the St. Peter's Recplex.
Yes.
We may go watch a game or two if we can. We've got the ACHA National Championships here in St. Louis.
There's like
being
120
hosted.
teams.
It's crazy. And you know what the best part is? Because a lot of the traditional football and basketball powerhouse schools don't have hockey teams. So when you walk into Centene right now, you see all the jerseys hanging up, and it's Texas, and it's Alabama, and it's Arkansas, it's Kentucky, and it's UCLA, and it's cool, Indiana. You know, you see all these traditional schools that you associate with college sports that you don't traditionally associate with college hockey, but they're all being Texas. They're all being represented. The jerseys are unbelievable.
Think about this. In 10 years, 10 to 12 years, you can't tell me that the SEC is not going to have a Division I
I hope they do.
hockey conference. That'd be sick.
Oh, my God. It'd be unreal. So my nephew's actually in town playing for Indiana, so we may check that out, and hopefully if the weather cooperates. Again, Four Hands Brewing Company, you're looking to have yourself a good time this weekend, get some Four Hands Brewing Company products. Check out all the tasting rooms, 1220 South 8th Street in downtown St. Louis. Get those 1220 spirits. They got the location in Kirkwood, Chesterfield, and now open at Lambert Airport as well. So check that out, Four Hands Brewing Company. And, of course, our friends over at First Community, which brings us the one and only Hockey Sense each and every week. Check out or ask questions about the small business lending. If you run a business, I'm talking to you, all you business owners. You ready to make your business to the next level or take it to the next level? First Community can help you do that by offering competitive rates and commercial loans. They've got lines of credit, commercial credit cards, all designed to help your business thrive. So check it out. They got a designated team waiting to take your call and to help you walk through it. Check out firstcommunity.com. Do it today. All right, Jammer. Appreciate it as always. We got through another one.
That's fun.
Have a great weekend. And cruise down, man. No more hockey, right? For the foreseeable.
Yeah, we got spring tryouts, I think next week or a few weeks. We got spring break. We're heading to Florida on Monday, so we're excited.
Okay. Enjoy that, man.
Yeah, I got to show you that resort.
Oh, yeah, you do. You do. You should be taking me with you. See you, everybody.